20 of the hardest hitters in NFL history. Hey guys, welcome back to Big Hit Central. Today we'll talk about 20 of the hardest hitters in NFL history. Let's head into it. Number 20, Lorenzo Neal. Lorenzo Neal might only have 6 career touchdowns, but he's definitely one of the most dominant players in NFL history. From 1993 until 2008, Neal was considered one of the elite fullbacks in the game, if not the best. Neal led the block for guys like Eddie George, LaDainian Tomlinson, Willis McGahee, and Ray Rice. Without Neal, perhaps, those running backs wouldn't have as many yards as they do today. Number 19, Olin Kreutz. You don't have to be a linebacker or a defensive end to be considered a hard hitter. You could very well be an offensive lineman. In Olin Kreutz's case, he's one of the most dominant offensive linemen to ever play the game, as he's such a tough player who would violently pass and run block at a very high level. Number 18, Jim Brown. A running back? You bet. Jim Brown might be one of the greatest running backs in NFL history, but he's also one of the hardest hitters to ever play the game. Brown would fight for every inch, and it seemed like he played with a real chip on his shoulder, as he wanted to punish everyone in his way and prove to the world that he was truly the best. Number 17, Ray Nitschke. Sorry for the low quality video of Ray Nitschke, but I'm sure you all know who he is. Nitschke is a household name, as he's one of the greatest Green Bay Packers of all time, as well as one of the hardest hitters from the linebacker position. Opposing players simply love to hate Nitschke. He was just that mean. Number 16, Rodney Harrison. Go ahead and call Rodney Harrison a dirty player, because when it's all said and done, it doesn't matter. He's one of the hardest hitters of our generation, as well as the NFL history. Harrison nearly beheaded wide receivers for nearly 50 years with his New England Patriots and San Diego Chargers, which also resulted in several fines that he had to pay, but that's the price of being a feared and relentless hitter. Number 15, Junior Seau. Junior Seau is arguably the greatest linebacker from the 1990s until the early 2000s. Seau simply dominated the NFL, and he wasn't afraid to go up against anyone who stood across from him, and would just punish anyone who had the ball in their hands. Number 14, Mike Ditka. We all might know Mike Ditka as the head coach of the 1985 Chicago Bears, but when he was a tight end, he was simply fearless and wanted to hit everyone on the opposing team. When Ditka caught a pass, he would just run towards the closest defender and knock them over in moving to the next guy. Number 13, Dick Night Train Lane. Dick Night Train Lane is one of my favorite players to ever play the sport of football. Lane was just so reckless that he threw his entire body into every tackle and used every bit of energy that he had to tackle the ball carrier. Night Train definitely played like he wanted to take opposing players' heads off. Number 12, Gene Upshaw. Gene Upshaw is arguably the greatest offensive guard to play the game of football. Just watch the video posted to get a real understanding on how dominant Upshaw was, and how he was such a hard hitter. Number 11, Mel Blount. Some might call Mel Blount the greatest cornerback to ever play the game, and I have to agree. Blount was a huge part of the success of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the early 1970s. Blount was just an interception machine, but he also was a hard hitter. If Blount couldn't pick off the pass, then he'd make the opposing receiver he was covering pay for even thinking about catching the pass he was attempting to intercept. Number 10, Deacon Jones. Deacon Jones, the man who coined the term sack, is arguably the greatest pass rusher in NFL history and was certainly one of the hardest hitters that the game of football has ever seen. He simply put fear in quarterbacks' eyes. Number 9, Jack Tatum. Jack Tatum was a scary dude. You did not run routes with him, roaming around in the secondary. Tatum wanted to punish anyone who stepped foot near him. Number 8, Dick Butkus. When you think about a linebacker position, Dick Butkus is a name that immediately pops into my head. Butkus was one of the meanest players to ever play, as he was such a hard and violent tackler. Number 7, Ray Lewis. This hit that Ray Lewis put on Dustin Keller pretty much sums it up. As of right now, Lewis is probably the hardest hitter in the NFL. Number 6, John Lynch.
Let's go! Knock him out! Let's go! Let's go. Hey, let's see what we're made of. Let's see what we're made of right here.
You might not realize it, but John Lynch is actually the greatest. John Lynch is actually one of the greatest players in NFL history. Lynch was such a hard hitter, coming from the safety position, as he'd only take out opposing wide receivers. But he'd also be a huge help in the running game, as he'd come storming up from the secondary and just take out whoever had the ball. Number 5, Jack Ham. Jack Ham was one of the many reasons why the Pittsburgh Steelers were so tough and dominant in the 1970s. Ham swallowed up any ball carrier who was in his reach, and simply punished them, making them think twice about running near him. Number 4, Jack Lambert. During the 1970s, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense was known as the Steel Curtain, as they were just so dominant and ultimately put fear in opposing offenses' eyes. One of the players who was an integral part of the defense was Jack Lambert, one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history. Number 3, Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott wasn't just part of the San Francisco 49ers dynasty as the leader of the team's defense, but he was such a violent defender. Lott would just line up receivers when they'd go out for a pass, and then just throw his entire body into them once the ball touched their hands. Number 2, Bill Romanowski. Say what you want about Bill Romanowski, Whether you like him or not, you at least have to give him some credit for being one of the most violent tacklers in NFL history. Romanowski was just one scary individual. Number 1. Lawrence Taylor. If you ask me, Lawrence Taylor is not only the hardest hitter in NFL history, but he is the greatest defender to ever play the game. LT put fear in everyone's eyes when he stepped onto the field, as he would do whatever it took to get the ball carrier, and made sure that he punished him. It was almost like LT was a man on a mission, and actually wanted to hurt anyone that stood in his way. What do you think about these hitters? Which is your favorite one? Let us know in the comment section. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.